Morning. Hello, everybody. How are you, David?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
You're looking surprisingly well, considering you had to drive for about 17 hours of yesterday.
Well, there was massive challenges this weekend. It was a very interesting couple of days. And I've had several text messages from several concerned viewers saying, will you be careful this morning, please? And the answer to that is no.
And why should you be careful this morning, David? What?
So I think it's just worth covering this off. There was a very strong sense of feeling in the room and also on social media amongst certain people that the entertainment at the Negs was inappropriate, both for the audience and for this day and age in general. So there you go.
You got to give
that's the premise. I'm just going to leave that there. You discuss it. I'll come back in an hour, see how you got
on. You're just dropping the depth charge and then running, are you?
That's it. No, so it was burlesque, wasn't it? Really, which
it's
obviously
it's the burlesque gorilla in the room, David. Let's deal with the burlesque gorilla in the room. So to put people, obviously these are all very big, glitzy, glamorous do's, aren't they? So Negotiator Conference, setting the scene, Friday, over 1,000 people in the Grosvenor, the largest hotel for entertainment in I think pretty much the country actually there. Or everyone blitzed up to the nines, and they had gone for this cabaret style theme, which got quite racy, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. Can you see a child crawling in the background?
I did see that, and you know, of course.
I'm in the middle of a podcast.
I need the printer.
Why is Daddy
so anyhow, as you can see, there are rooms that I walk into where I'm extremely well respected. This isn't one of them.
In your own home. So yes, it was a very sort of a grown theme, wasn't it? In terms of obviously there were these scantily clad ladies that were dancing on stage. At one stage, the thread I saw, I think it was on Elle's thread, was that somebody had pasties on their nips, which John Hanford quite rightly pointed out was a dream of his come true. But what the theme of it was, wasn't it? It was that, especially on her table, Elle's table, it was a table full of ladies and everything else, that it just felt completely inappropriate for the day and age.
And I think that's a sign of how quickly things have, I suppose, progress or things that have changed. Because I've been going to the Neg Awards now for, I don't know, maybe sort of 4 or 5 years. I know COVID got in the way, but it's always been. They seem to sort of repeat the theme. So it's either sort of Cirque du Soleil or burlesque. And let's face it, it's all the same sort of gear.
And to be honest, I'm coming at this from a different angle because, as ever, you can never feel other people's kind of issues in the same way that they feel themselves. So if they do feel that this is obviously impinging on, obviously, their rights and everything else, then that's something for themselves to be able to comment on without us being able to say we understand.
Well, I think that it's worth addressing that comment. There's been a lot of it online this weekend, and I think, and it mainly sort of comes from the Women in Estate Agency camp, and it was lovely to see so many of the superstars from Women in the Estate Agency there over the weekend. It was really nice to catch up with everybody. I think the sense of feeling was that there is a balance of appropriateness and a tone that needs to be set, and an example that needs to be set by event organisers, and
that isn't going to be set by us, of course.
That it just wasn't done. So I think universally everybody agreed that Stephen Mangan, for instance, was probably the funniest presenter. He was. I think he was very good.
Look, I don't want to say this because I have met him personally twice before. So, of course, he's a dear friend of mine. Do you know what? He didn't work for me, actually. I don't know. And I mean, obviously, normally I'm the laughing hyena for anybody who cracks even the faintest of jokes.
I liked him. I thought it's hard.
I think he's
it's daunting to stand up in front. Can you imagine standing on stage in front of 1,000 double glazing salesmen, for instance, and making the same speech? It's difficult.
I thought you were just going for Agents Giving, and yes, we do know what that feels like.
No, but I think he did a good job. I think the point here is that the organizers need to try and strike a better balance between educational content, if you like, and what people are going to get out of the day in terms of self-improvement.
Okay,
and a glorious piss up.
We got to drill into it, because I mean, that's first of all, you can't go and critique an event per se, really, can you? Where that has been what they're like. I do think there is a big question mark over there about what events of the future need to be and look like, because I do think there is the risk of a tiredness coming in. The cabaret thing didn't work for me, and I think it was not mainly because of that. And as much as there was extremely clantily dressed men on stage, wasn't it? The contortionist one, as I said to whoever on my table, I was going to try and recreate over the weekend without following through. But it was just felt samey. It's like, well, okay, what else is there? I mean, genuinely, I thought the awards were going to be presented in December. It was taking so long the course, but that's the nature of those big deals. And the thing you've got to say, by the way, is putting on an event like that is literally a military operation, isn't it? In the face of that they couldn't control. The strikes, which meant that us and others were doing planes and automobiles with the trains taken out. So they had that massive disruption. Anyone outside London was faced with a nightmare there. You had the football on the same time, so there was people running around and watching on there. And
it's a Friday. No one, when it gets to the weekend is going to sit there and give themselves the same way that they would do on a sort of midweek event or a Monday or Tuesday when it comes to self-development. But I think what people want to hear from the organisers of the Neg Awards in tomorrow's press is they want some form of an apology. They want it addressing. I do hope it's not
what's they apologising for then, David? Let's be specific.
I think what they need to apologise for is that they got the entire tone wrong. I think that the sort of imagery and that they used, and you don't need, when you're presenting awards to sort of 100+ estate agents, you don't need two dolly birds in 1970s style, let's show them what they've won. You don't need that on a stage. It's not.
No, that's for the club after.
Well, it might be for.
I'll tell you what, I did start thinking about that, because everyone then, there's some people talking about, like, where I do love those burlesque shows, and there's what's the famous show, Moulin Rouge, obviously is all about that. But then I thought, of course, that actually you specifically go to that show yourself, so you're opting into that kind of bawdy thing, aren't you? Whereas, yes, if you are intending to go to an estate agency show / conference, then you may, to have that kind of imposed upon you is the bit that feels.
Do you know what the bottom line is? And this is what
can't say bottom.
That's what they're saying as well online. I think it just echoes those views. The truth is this. The outrage, if you like, demonstrates how far we've come. And when we say we've come, I'm not going to class myself in that category necessarily. I don't know whether I've deserved it or not. But I think in what might have been acceptable sort of 5 or 10 years ago in an industry that, when we say was heavily male dominated, still is, obviously, in terms of numbers. But I think that the representation amongst women and the leadership that they now have it makes them a much more visible force to be reckoned with. And also, let's all bear in mind, we're in a post-Me Too 2022 context. So you cannot just run the same entertainment that you would have done 5 or 6 years ago and shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's just a bit of harmless fun if it's going to offend people. And I think that's basically what's ended up happening this weekend. And it's interesting because, and I suppose rightly so, it gives those loud voices in the Women and Estate Agency group a platform now to promote their own event, which is going to be taking place in March, which promises to do conferences entirely different and in a refreshing way. And just to touch on the conference side of things again, let's bear in mind there's a need, if you like, for the industry to get together and have a light-hearted evening where they let the hair down and Whaley dances like a legend that he is.
Like nobody's watching.
Literally like nobody's watching and everybody's watching all at the same time. There's a need for that. There is one conference. So for argument's sake, I'll name one that I think sort of nails the education side of things. EA Masters is well known for being a little bit more reserved and highbrow, and that's the way that Mr. CX 4.0 likes it. But they get that right, and you walk away from that day with an even mix of having seen everybody, bit of a conference, bit of awards, feel good factor, and it's not a late evening, if you like. There's one award ceremony which I'm not going to name, but literally doesn't have any kind of educational content at all. And most years is just Phil, what's his face from the telly, reading out literally a list of what feels like 1,000 agents.
Yeah.
And it is just an excuse to get together and have a piss of it. It bears, to me anyway, and this is my own opinion.
I think you can say the Esters, David. Once you've said it's there. I mean, look, it is fair enough, and I think one of the things genuinely about that one in particular is that people can let their hair down because they don't feel like they've got to go and learn something and take great learnings and everything else. And I think they were the first to take the Grosvenor, obviously, which is just this huge, massively impressive venue, isn't it, in terms of doing things.
I do think, though, what I really fancy, and I don't fancy another award ceremony that's hosted by a celebrity. I don't. I just don't think it's necessary. I don't want to see more of Phil, Move IQ, Property Mark dude. He's done very well off us this year, but I think that it's time to perhaps acknowledge that the industry is full of people, young talent that have what to give themselves and should get out there on stage and give everybody a little bit of inspiration. I think what we're ready for, dare I say it, is an Arik style event. Ooh. Where people like Jonathan Hanford, people like Sarah Ed, people like
the stars,
Katie Griffin, people like Megan 18, people like David Mintz, people love David Mintz, Christian Byfield. Whoever it is, get them out there on stage and let them tell their stories and let them pass something on to the audience that's going to stick with them. I think there's a real, in a sort of auditorium style context where nobody can skirt in and out. We don't necessarily need to be massively distracted by an innovation hall or whatever it is on top of it. Let's just have a day of learning. Let's get our heads down if that's what you want to do. But if you want to, I don't necessarily always think that it needs to be both, is what I'm saying.
I think the only problem you've got there is the commercial realities. So Arik, for example, let's not forget, the only reason that auditorium of 4,000 to 5,000 people manages to happen is because there is a supplier hall there. And again, the supplier's paying the bill. So and I do think this is a challenge. And I've said this to every one of the organisers of the respective shows is, there is ostensibly a conflict, it feels like at the moment, between what the suppliers are trying to achieve, FaceTime with the agents, and what the agents want and desire from a day. Many of them understand that, yes, these are the people that foot the bill. But as you've just said there, if you're not having to pay £50,000-100,000 a time for these top speakers who, if what we're saying is right, people aren't actually saying is essential anyway, then the cost of the presentation of putting on the show drops massively accordingly anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think they are crazy expensive to produce. The tickets.
Well, why? But that's the key is what percentage, once you add up 2-3 speakers that are at, 10, 20,000 pounds, the top ones going up to 50 or 100,000 ones. I mean, I don't know. I have heard that the top guys, people like Seth Godin, if he had been appearing on stage, you would have been paying 150,000 pounds, rather than obviously as we had them kind of being.
But can I tell you something? In a homegrown sort of way, I don't need Seth Godin to give me inspiration when I've got Christian Byfield. And if you want to hear from suppliers, and as you know, I spend most of my week talking to both agents and suppliers, I would say suppliers have as much to give in that context as well. They can also get out on stage, and Christian can say, look, as an agent, this is why I became a supplier. This is why we do what we do. And I think there's something to sort of, we have enough inspiration within the actual industry before we get sick of it.
And that's such a brilliant segue through to me, if you're looking for this brilliance from within the industry and in terms of innovation, which brings us to Whaley's Tiny Tools section of the show, David, a new section where we let the muggles speak. So let me just share my screen now, if that's okay.
It's time for Whaley's Tiny Tool.
Tiny Tool, exactly right. Right, so can you see that okay? Was it wrong?
I can see it.
We're going to set the agenda, David. We're not. We're going to piggyback into the discussion that's already happening. Was it wrong to have had the burlesque cabaret theme at the Neg Awards? Simply go, as you can see there, to the top, www.menti.com. Use that code 6851-6626 and simply vote. And you are either saying, no, it's just a bit of harmless fun, and everyone who thinks otherwise is woke, or yes, it was entirely inappropriate and they should be doing something different and better. So once more, menti.com and use the code 6851-6626, and we will come back to that afterwards.
It's interesting. Thomas Morris, good morning, Mr. Simon Bradbury, and congratulations. He was looking very proud of his award the other night.
Well, it's not an awards ceremony without Thomas Morris kind of clearing up again there, is it? It was actually, can we go back to let's talk about two of the most important people there on the day. Simon Bradbury, obviously. And then the guest, and what I did think they did brilliantly was George Osborne, who was drafted in and I was obviously, as a chippy limoncello liberal as I am, I was determined to see what he had to have. And I wanted to go there, a bit like Nick Hancock in the Jungle, and absolutely despise him. And I found myself, and again, actually, a little bit frustrated, because why does it take these politicians to leave politics before they become human and interesting? Like John Major and people like that come out and suddenly they're like elder statesmen now. George Osborne, I think anyone and everyone I spoke to there was absolutely brilliant on Friday. Not because people ostensibly agreed, but because he literally didn't seem to be holding back.
The same reason why some of our establishments within the industry don't get as much done as they need to, because once you're part of that establishment and you're at the top, you have to toe the line. You have to play the game. There are certain things that you're not allowed to say, certain things that you have to go with. But actually, once you meet them in the real world, you'll find out that they have thoughts and feelings of their own, and they're actually quite decent people to know, I think. I got that sense last time we were at the Negs.
The next. What was good was I sat next to obviously hideous Brexiteer Simon Bradbury, who couldn't stop. Well, I say heckling. He was doing a cowardly heckle, aka he made me hear every comment he was saying to George Osborne, like, "You hideous Remainer traitor." which was probably the best seat in the House to have had next to it. But I tell you, one of the things that jumped out of that discussion that I just thought was you know, when you just hear the idea and you think that's so obvious that it has to be done, it has to happen. He was talking about, I think he was right in saying that George Osborne set up the OBR, wasn't it? Because to make difficult decisions, to look at kind of independent kind of point of view, it has to happen outside of politics.
Yes, you need a patsy.
You need a patsy, but also you need to have someone that isn't constrained by 5-year cyclical election windows. And somebody asked that, and I don't know who it was, but whoever it was brilliant in there, asked the question, is it time that housing was taken outside of political parties and short-termism? Every party agrees and says we need to build more homes. So rather than that being a political football, shouldn't there be someone like the OBR or whatever else that actually just sets these long-term targets for house building, and we can all get on and you know, work around that? And I just thought that if somebody isn't, you know, Property Mark need to be, you know, taking that to government and saying, let's get this on, because they're clearly not going to get round to doing it themselves, are they?
I have to tell you, because I need to say thank you to him anyway, but I was a guest of the NRLA, the National Rifle Lobby of America. Now, of course, the National Residential Landlords Association. But I was sat with Ben Beadle on his table.
Just to piggyback again, man of the moment at the moment. I'll come on to my reasoning. Sorry, go on.
But I have to say, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. That man does politics the way that it needs to be done. He never lets up.
Right.
He never drops the agenda, and he will never stop asking the difficult questions, even if, quote unquote, it might be bad for business. Yeah. He will defend that sector, and I think it's worth saying, our sector, you can cast off the self-managing landlords as much as you like, but let's face it, we're all on the same team. Ben does it tremendously well, and I wish, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I wish we all, in all the organizations, just took a little bit of inspiration from Ben and realized that we've got nothing to lose by asking difficult questions of our politicians. We've got nothing.
You've got two ways, David. You go sycophantic, don't you? And you nod and you try and do the right thing, and actually you just get absorbed into the whole process. Or you do what Ben did. That interview he did, I posted completely separately. I hadn't actually really properly met the fellow, apart from a drunken bashes, as we've got like there. But so I went and saw him on the night before and I was fascinated by his whole approach. But he had that BBC interview last week where the tragic case of obviously Awa Bishak, I think it was, died from the respiratory disease after, you know, having the mold in there, and Graham Wilson was there and everything else, and we were agreeing it was a virtuoso performance of what if he'd taken a misstep in that interview, he could have been absolutely pillaged by everybody else, and he went the other way. He didn't try to hide from it in terms of saying this is the responsibility, you know, obviously of landlords and everything else. But he also put it straight back on the front foot again in terms of what needs to happen and why. It was brilliant.
I don't think Ben is always popular even with his own sort of voters all the time, because sometimes, I mean, for instance, his appearance on the BBC was to tackle that particular mold issue, and there were other people out there that felt that he should have raised other issues. But he, as he quite rightly says, he's there to defend the sector. He's there to address the key issues of the day, but he sort of does it on a 24/7 basis. He's always where the news is happening.
Available, and because of that, they are asking back time and time again. Also, as well, it's very brave to do it in such a jacket and those Portillo pants that he is now starting to trademark himself. They were exceptional. But yeah, it was really, really good. It was funny you said that, actually, because he said he hadn't stopped getting grief, not because of the jacket, but actually from some of his own members who said, why didn't you raise the tax issue and everything else? Like, wow, guys, how can you not fail to misjudge them? Because you imagine if he'd actually said, I don't want to talk about that 2-year-old. I want to talk about the issues my landlords are having. That would have just been an absolute...
I think he's excellent in terms of setting the agenda and pushing that agenda and being absolutely unapologetic and very charming all at the same time. He can hold a politician to account, and he can ask those questions. And guys, I've said it to him, I'll say it to you all, they're not different to the rest of us. In the estate agency industry, landlords and house builders are not separate industries. All right, as much as you might think you are, you're not. We're all on the same journey. We're all in the same boat, to be quite honest. And we're worth a lot of money to the economy every year if we get our shit together and we get organized and start working together. But to do it as just agents on their own pushing one agenda, landlords on their own pushing another, and house builders quietly sort of being the commercial force behind everything that government is interested when it comes to housing, I think we need to get together. I think we need to actually combine. Avengers assemble.
Property Avengers assemble. So look here. So we've got Mr. Woke Thomas Morris again, Mr. Simon Bradbury here. James O'Brien, wrong as he is most of the time, is an excellent example of someone who is prepared to ask it. And he then goes on to say, obviously, it's James O'Brien. So just calling them ladies' names does not make you any more in tune with the times, Simon. Obviously, you've been overthinking the issue there. You don't need to rename people. I'm not Simone. He's not Davina.
We do need to get better at, you know, we do a load of stuff as well, don't we? Interviews and whatnot, podcasts, and even this Sunday morning thing that we do from time to time. And there is a sense that we're probably very bad at this, you and I, but because we are so honest, that sometimes you try and put your commercial interests ahead of you telling the truth or actually saying what you think.
I have never put my commercial interests ahead of anything.
No, you never have. You never have. And that's the difference. But, you know, there's a sense that when you see, and I'm not having a go at Chris here. I think he knows I've got a lot of respect for him, but you've got the likes of sort of Chris Watkin, who claims to be asking the difficult questions, but sometimes we pull our punches a bit too much. And I think we need to get out there. We need to start sort of holding people to account.
That's what the voice of Chris is about, though. Sorry. So actually, you are right. We do. Look, when we're putting forwards these webinars with suppliers, we are doing it to give them the opportunity to be the best they are. You know, we're not here trying to be clever and be property packsmen. We do that on panel shows or on the podcast. But in terms of that, they've got their time and they need to do it. Chris, on the other hand, does it, and that's why he is exceptional. He can go anywhere. I would ask the question, not the biggest one in terms of the cabaret, where was Watkins on Friday? I mean, come on, Negotiator. You need to bring the man into the thing. I was looking around. I didn't know. I didn't feel like it was okay. It was a Watkins exclusion zone.
It was odd not to have him there, to be honest.
It was.
He's a familiar face at most bashes. I don't know where he was. I don't know what the reason behind that is. There will be a reason, and I'm sure it wasn't just that he was unavailable. There'll be a reason behind it.
It'll be one of those dodgy Masonic things that, you know, goes on. He'll have been deciding how the world's going to be run at a secret meeting.
Here we go, Tommy Morris once again. The reason politicians and agents find it very difficult to be really honest is that they are punished, at least in the short term, for telling the truth, and that's the reality. But Simon, your customers are not going to punish you, because regardless of what we all think within the industry, as long as you do what you do so well, and by the way, congratulations on your community award, because you do so much work, good work. That's what your customers are interested in, right? They are not interested on your political views about housing necessarily, but the politicians need to be. And are they going to punish you? Member organizations, now they will punish you for not towing the line, right? But those member organizations need to, in my opinion, start to understand that they've got more to lose by remaining silent on the key issues of the day.
I've just had a look at the voting there. Once again, 100% of people, this is not a 52-48 split, are saying that it was entirely inappropriate to have had the burlesque cabaret theme at the Neg Awards. If these woke tofu eating people have got it wrong, go to menti.com, menti.com, use the code 6851-6626 and vote. And if there is enough, if we can narrow that up a little bit, I think we should do it anyway. Actually, David, why don't we put an open invite there for the people, Grant and the people from the Negotiator, those people that felt affront, to have a panel discussion in an open way about why it was inappropriate in there, and for them to understand as well from their point of view why they might have felt it appropriate to put that on. So that's out there for anybody who wants to actually discuss this in a more genuine fashion.
But I think that it's regardless of what the outcome of that survey is, to me, enough people have spoken out, and people have had their say this weekend for it to really, and they've set the agenda, haven't they, for what's going to happen in say March, with they're promising a new style of both educational content, the tone, and the type of conference that we're going to have. Look, I think we're a big enough industry to have representation from everybody in every group, and for there to be several different types of events every year. There needs to be at least one where everybody lets their hair down, and let us not, this is my appeal to all of you, let us not lose our sense of humor entirely. Let us also be human, but let's understand that there is a platform to push an agenda. It's not always going to be on a great night out where everybody's drunk.
No, and luckily I managed to keep it together, so that was good. Shall we now run through a few of the awards in the way that I believe awards ceremonies should be done?
Welcoming on stage Mr. Simon Whale.
Well, look, let's just run through a few of them. There's congratulations to Joe Bull from Miles and Bar, Rising Star of the Year. Always good to see the individuals getting it. I think there should be much more of that. I mean, one thing we took from Agent Rainmaker was them focusing on some of the less exotic but so important, like they were doing sort of the best property manager in the industry. That's where, I think you've nailed it, where these people are actually there at the cutting end who can manage more than 250 or 300 properties as a property manager. Those are the ones that the silent heroes who need a shout out, aren't they? So again, yeah, Joe Bull, fantastic. And Miles and Bar, I don't know if you noticed there, they had a fantastic night, aren't they, in terms of one of those companies that, gets used to finding their way to the stage. Christian Byfield's always a good one for understanding how to milk that walk to the maximum.
I'm not going to say that awards are important to Christian, but if you've ever visited his office, you'll know that his centerpiece is a table with an array of different silverware that he's brought home.
If you fell over in there, you would skewer yourself to death with the amount of Esters and other awards he has ready, wouldn't you? And actually, I have fallen over in there after having had a few drinks to celebrate.
It's staggering, but you know what? We do realise, actually, by visiting Christian's office, awards have got smaller over the years.
And
the trophies have shrunk. Yeah. They're less heavy than they used to be.
So let's go on. A community champion of the year, Thomas Morris. Kind of, I don't know. He deserves to keep it. He's won it that many times. A company that does so well, and his voice is so important everywhere. To keep focusing on, the different things. They raise money for the helicopter. I think is it the Magpass campaign, which is fantastic. Simon and his team are out there with the RAN campaign. This was a brilliant campaign. Being seen very, very visibly. Picking up litter. I think for agents that do that, so that other companies quite fine to make donations to things, but when you're out there in your local community doing that, show me other companies, other industries do that as well in their vertical. I can't think of them.
Yeah, I think when it comes to community work, this industry is amazing with that. Absolutely.
And yeah, shout outs Linley and Simpson, Cavedon Group followed up in there. Hatton Home and TaylorMade got highly commended. Marketing campaign of the year, Marsh and Parsons. Now, I'm not surprised by this at all. They have been getting a little bit. What I like is it is quite edgy, isn't it? They do get people who say too much. I think famously, and I don't know whether they do this on purpose. Didn't they got actually a legal letter from Michael Caine, didn't they? because they
Yes,
used.
they did.
What was that about? It was something like you only meant to blow the bloody doors off or something like that. And it wasn't actually a photo, but it was a mocked up image. And of course, it then came out in the press that, was it Sir Michael Caine, famous Brexiteer, leave it at the doorway, Lee. It's not important. Was obviously talking to them because they hadn't asked his permission, which I was a little bit sort of amazed that you can.
But Marsh and Parsons are probably one of the greats in terms of the people that put massive budget and resource into marketing campaigns.
Yeah.
Always try and sort of nail it in terms of capturing the zeitgeist.
Yep. So Bennett, look, the team at Hatton Home, this is an up-and-coming agency, absolutely fantastic. A person, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying, that Peter Rawlings himself said was best of them, was one of the very best agents he had ever dealt with, which is some sign of success if you can get that. Leaders Romans Group got bronze, and Mallory Irvin, Property Consultants. I think that's quite an interesting one. Some of the stuff they do on LinkedIn, showing you don't have to have these massive budgets and everything else there. Really impressive. One of the most visible categories that I think needs a shout out, and it was brilliant actually. As usual, I went missing quite early on in the day at the conference itself to go networking at the pub, and there was a beautiful moment where, like in the team in Anchorman, where they all meet in the car park and have a massive pair up. Home Flow walked into the room, and there was Ben Sellers as well in there. I thought, oh my God, it's going to get real. And unfortunately, they had a really nice, sensible conversation, which shows to me that it's more like website OPEC out there, and they're agreeing on how much the fee should be. I didn't hear that exactly, but I'm assuming that's what happened. So let's have a look, because this is a double category, isn't it? Because it's not just the agent able to shout out about it. Clearly, the supplier who's created that has all the pride in the world. So Bentley Hurst got gold there. Absolutely fantastic website. You need to go and have a look at these guys. If there's one thing you take,
they are truly impressive.
Really good. Charters estate agents, which I remember seeing, it stuck in my mind a few years ago, still absolutely doing it out there. And Philip from Perry Bishop, well done, Perry Bishop again on getting bronze there. Again, another great one there. That's Property Webmasters, I think, if I remember rightly as well. There one. Employer of the Year, as we said said before there, this is such an important one. Miles and Bar, picking up yet another bit of another award. Leaders Romans Group and Encore. Bradley's and Elm Group were highly commended. New Agency of the Year. Now, I didn't know these guys, but the OPA, the online property agency, got gold here, which again was they certainly seem to be nominated and got a few. David Adams, I remember, from ex-Chesterton's, really, luxury property. When you put it in the name, you're kind of saying what you do on the tin, aren't you, in terms of their James & James Estate Agency. And Neil Robinson of Facebook fame, I caught up with him very briefly. He got highly commended as well. Residential Auction Service of the Year, Patterson's Auctions, followed by Paul Fosh and Wilson's Auctions in there. And actually, I say, well, there was a lovely moment, obviously me being the hideous show-off I am with my glowing and flashing in the right way.
You looked resplendent, my friend.
I just don't care about the cost of living crisis. I can afford those AA batteries, and I'm not apologising to anyone.
To hell with it, eh?
But it was lovely that Shelley came over from Bidwell's and said, I just need to talk to the person who's willing to do that. And I don't know whether she was treating it as a scientific sort of experiment, but she was from Bidwell's, and Bidwell's, this fantastic rural agency there, picked up, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4, but they are such a big company over kind of in the East Midlands and over from there, based around Cambridge, and anyone in that kind of area will know them very well. So Bidwell's got gold, Bramley's, and then Pattison Estate Agents, highly commended for Property Management Department of the Year. Property Management Company of the Year, Encore, ELM Realty Management Limited. Land and New Home Specialist, we're going back to Bidwell's again. Propology Boutique Properties and bronze for Beresford's was very good. Now, I thought this, I don't know, do you think, when I thought about this one, Sustainable Agency of the Year, I thought, does anybody care there? But it's a really important one, isn't it, that we do start focusing on this as a category going forwards, unless you are going to literally just say,
yeah.
But that face you just did tells me everything, David.
I almost think it doesn't need an award. We should all be switching the lights off and getting on with it, and doing trying in our personal lives and also business lives just to make things slightly more sustainable. But I whether it's an award category, to me feels like it.
But couldn't you say there that everyone has to have a website? And as we just said, that's a really important kind of thing to do. Anyway, Oakwood Homes got that one. You can set fire to the planet then, David, if that's what you want to do. We won't have that category.
No. I think we should be saving the planet, and I think we all deserve a badge and an award for it. But
we know why he's been tuning in, and I can see he's been getting hot on the comments in the last few minutes. Let's get to the suppliers, who, as we all know, are the things that keep this industry going. So, Supplier of the Year, technology in apps. He's going to need Mr. Sheen to clean all of his awards. Christian Byfield and the Depository, our first winner of a Kerfuffle Essentials Award, which critiques the very best in three main categories. I sometimes think, am I the biggest award hoard in the industry and whore in the industry? And then I see Christian and I think, he gets the chance to go up for base and for the Depository. There is a man that doesn't know how to say no.
But really, really, really well deserved, and they do it so well. They do it. The lovely people.
Well. Spike Global got silver. One utility bill. Well done, guys, there for bronze, and highly commended LFS Minerva. You got Supplier of the Year Technology, agency software, and I should disclose a little bit of bias here. I think Repit won gold there again, showing that, I think for the fifth, did they say it was the 5th year in a row?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, there's lots of other thing about new players and everything else there, but that just shows to me. I always said it didn't really. No, that's wrong. Of course, it matters about winning the big one, but just as important is being, is the consistency and winning year after year. And clearly, those guys have done so. Well done to my old mob there. Let Tech Solutions in silver. Street, obviously, doing the Mo Farah in bronze place, and highly commended to Good Lord. So well done, Costas and his team. Supplier of the Year Services and Products. So we had the letting partnership at the top there in gold. One utility bill and I Am Property. Highly commended FCS compliance and Verboo. Well done to the Verboo team. Always a lot of fun, as I'd say there. Products and services and Supplier. Well, again, and this is one of the downsides of a place like that, David. I think the room's too big. I think the venue's too big. One thing I would say about events is I could do with it. I understand bigger is better, as they always say, but there were whole groups of people you didn't bump into. Now, maybe they were hiding from me, as quite often happens, but I didn't, for example, see the Spectre team until way later in the day, until they were up on stage.
Yeah, no, that's so true. It was too big a room to work effectively.
And everyone needs to think about how we work, because we certainly haven't done that.
I actually, it was the one time I was really glad I didn't win a gold award for anything, because I was wondering how I was going to actually get through all those tables to get to the stage. Literally is a bit. Sorry? I don't need to worry about that there, do I?
No, we're coming to you. Do you remember that lad Joe I just said for Mars and Bar? That does show to me why he was a rising star. They were in a table in the middle, and he deliberately went the long way round to milk the applause. and that was the moment I stood up and started applauding.
you would have done laps.
Yeah, if I could do. So, yeah, Spectre got gold. I think this is an interesting one. Silver, products and services on the market. Doesn't that show how Jason Tebb is changing the whole almost profile of the business there in terms of what they're getting up to? And I think that's going to be a real demographic, isn't it, going forward? You're going to see the portal being recognised for the products and services that it does separately as well. So really, really good there. DCTR, the photo specialist, obviously getting bronze. And Jane, the wonderful Jane from JP Gardner Associates and Niche.com got highly commended. Professional support, Avrillo, the obviously conveyancing specialist, got gold there. No Letting Go in silver, and the TDS in bronze, just to show the all-important ones, but maybe the not-so-exciting ones still get recognised and everything else. And Move and the Able Agent, Charlotte's Able Agent, the training platform, got highly commended, which was brill. Now, if you see, by the way, could you see how long this is taking, and we're reading them like this?
I have perfected sleeping with my eyelids open.
We're going to go through just the golds now, Ian. So apart from this category, because otherwise we don't get to mention you. Northeast, Northwest Agents of the Year. Hinchcliffe Homes got gold, but a certain Normie and Co. got silver.
And I'd like to say they would have got gold if they just
hadn't been for what?
If they just make me a little bit more prominent within the business. Okay, guys? This face is gold right here.
And following that,
tremendous achievement.
Following this at 11 is the Normie podcast, which David will be on as well, with his guest Simon Whale. So stick with us if we are going to finish by 11. We've got Bramley's winning gold at Yorkshire in the Humber Agency of the Year. In East Midlands, and I am unashamedly shouting out this because this is a great kerfuffle member of ours, the Property Centre. Absolutely fantastic business, winning East Midlands and the West Midlands Agency there. East of England, again, Bidwell's came through. Our friend Mr. Simon Bradbury got silver, Thomas Morris. London Agency of the Year, where it all happens. Obviously, Sterling Ackroyd got gold of Nick Dunning Associates. And in the southeast, Ethical Lettings, followed by Hatton Home, got the southeast. Bradley's another amazing client of ours, and just an amazing team down there. Got gold, followed by it's a kerfuffle one too. The Property Centre in silver, so that's lovely to see. Scotland, up to Scotland, Nelson's Solicitors and Estate Agents won, and in Wales, the people we spent a lot of time with, again, another kerfuffle member, Archer & Co. Now, did you we mentioned there about the travel problems there. Did you see what these guys had to do?
No.
So because obviously, trying to get over from Wales and all around, nigh on impossible there. So they had a minibus that was going home that night. And I was having visions about just, what that, I can imagine it was the most uproarious, crazy thing until about 10 minutes in when the sound of snoring would have just kind of kicked on.
It's terrible, that sound of snoring in the back of a car, isn't it? So
it's it's horrible that people that treat you like driving Miss Daisy. Take me home, David.
Onwards, Jeeves.
Northern Ireland CPS Property Hybrid Agency of the Year. You move for knocked out here. Nick's, that's got to be one of the first. I haven't seen Nick Neal go up to in a while, but Retirement Home Search one there. And then, as we've just mentioned, Lettings Agency of the Year, Base Property with Drivers Norris in silver place. So Christian, the double bubble, winning in both agency and supplier side. Miles and Bar got gold, Property Centre got silver, Charters got bronze in the Lettings Agency of the Year. In large, we had Chesterton's, followed by Martin Gerrard and Leaders Romans. Estate Agency of the Year, small, Applegate, Hatton Home and the Opa. And then Agency of the Year, medium, Buckley Brown, obviously on the back of that website one, Collinson Hall and Thomas Morris. And then for the large one as a whole, Sterling Ackroyd, Chesterton's, and Miles and Bar.
There's a part of me that thought there's no chance he's going to read every single one of them out. But he did it.
Do you know, we're coming up to our review of the year again, which I know he's much looked forward to.
Are we done yet? The crowd at home want to know. Have you finally finished?
Just to be clear, that was done in 20 minutes rather than 17 hours or whatever the award was done.
Right.
You should be thankful.
This is what I want from an award ceremony in the future. I don't want it to go on for hours, but what I would like is, for instance, if they've got like a rising star, I'd like to hear from the rising star. So when they get up on stage,
that's exactly it.
I'd love to hear them sort of just say, this is the one thing that I've learned this year, or whatever it may be. I would love that.
So here's one for me, and then where genuinely what I would be doing is getting rid of the whole need to entertain cabaret, burlesque, whatever it is there. I spoke about this with Michelle Gallagher. What I wanted to hear after she won at EA Masters, after what Angie Cooney did at the Esters, was a literally Oscar's ability, 2 minutes, maybe either a quick quiz and answer, or the tearful kind of I'm so proud to be able to do it. That's what you're in for. And by the way, you said you wanted it to be quicker. If Normie and Co had got the opportunity to go on stage, you would not have been saying I want it to be quicker, would you?
I know, but I do want to hear. I would love to hear people make a little speech. I'd love to know who they'd like to thank. but I'd also like to know what it is that they have to give to the rest of us who have paid 195 quid to watch it. And I think that's the key, isn't it? When you sat there, it's a great night out. You're amongst industry peers. It is the best industry in the world, and it's full of the finest people in the world. But we have so much to share and to give. So let's share it and give it, boys and girls.
And you're right, it is the best. And that's why I chose to stay in it when many people, after I sold Reap, it said, time to go.
Outstaying is welcome for more than 20 years, Mr. Simon Whale.
Yeah, it's okay. The people are voting back. It's gone to 88-12 now, David, in terms
so
of
88 for the inappropriate.
It's inappropriate, yes, that's exactly right. So obviously that's there's no need for another referendum.
It'll be interesting to see how this is handled tomorrow in the press, because I think a lot of people...
I don't think it will be.
Right, well, a lot of people will be angry if it's not addressed. A lot of people will be angry if it's not addressed in the right way.
It'll be because some agent has opened a second office in Stoke, and that will have bumped the story off.
Oh, are we ready? Well, this is a great question in itself. You know, we talk about the industry sort of having to speak up and hold politicians to account, but are we ready for a free press and media that is less concerned about selling advertising and more about reporting the real facts of the day?
Well, we should
question.
be.
I'm just going to leave that hanging in the air.
No,
that's all I'm saying.
Should be. Yeah, certainly the opportunity to do it. So what people haven't done yet is really marry together the need for the, like the blended digital and live experience, because lots of people in lockdown had to go for that kind of approach, and we kind of got by doing it, but. And then last year EA Masters had all the digital events in the run up there, but it just seems to be very difficult to get any engagement when you go for those digital ones. Dare I say it, it will be people like our good friends here, Simon Bradbury and Christian and everyone, and Megan will be the same people going to those digital ones. But that you would have expected that would have been the opportunity for these many, independent agents out there that don't ordinarily come to the awards to actually have the chance to do it, but they certainly aren't doing it from what we can see of the events that have been done today.
Yeah, I think what will be useful is, and again, the EA Masters tried a bit of a digital offering, and it's mixed, the results and the feedback from that, and whether people actually want to attend on the day. What I find immensely useful, and I watch them back afterwards on YouTube, for instance, is ARIC content. So ARIC is given a lot like sort of TED lectures, isn't it? Yeah. And you can watch it back afterwards. You don't need to be there on the day, but if you bought a membership or whatever it may be, I'd be quite happy to watch it back in my own free time or listen to it as podcasts or whatever.
Your problem in this is that you've answered one of the difficulties for this. And any agent faced with, I've got a digital conference on now, which I know is on catch up, I can do it, faced with going to an appraisal or pretty much anything else, will always leave that on the side, won't they?
But if it's inspirational, right? I have no, do you know what? I don't need to listen to Seth Godin talk about marketing or some dude that was stuck in a cave about his inspirational life. I want to hear, no, I'm being serious, man. I want to listen to Christian Byfield. I want to hear what Simon Bradbury's got to say. Yeah. I want to hear what Graham Wilson's got to say. I want to hear from our everyday heroes in the industry why they are inspirational. I don't need to go across the world.
Which brings us to the first Kerfuffle conference.
No, but seriously, I think it's so important we acknowledge that on our own doorstep we have enough raw talent and we have enough to give each other that we don't need to go. And if I'm on the evaluation, I will want to listen to somebody talking inspirationally about our industry. I do want some tips on how to keep myself fresh and not get jaded. I think it's so important, and we have it.
Going back to your car journey, you do need that tip on how to stay fresh.
That's very true. A couple of times.
You tried to throw sausage rolls at me like I'm a chimp in the back. Actually, you don't feed sausage rolls to a chimp, do you?
But no, but it's look, I think it's so important. I think we've got it all in-house. I think we can do it. We need to just get better at organising ourselves and getting clear with what the agenda should be. We don't need to pay thousands and thousands of pounds for people to fly across the world to speak to us. We need to hear from the people that are genuinely changing things every day.
And I've had a chat with Nigel. Obviously he invited us a group into, and they do try and learn and improve on this. And he wanted to understand what could be done differently and everything else. So I know they always do challenge themselves. So I'll be very interested to see their views. But also, as we said, to Grant, Simon, and Sarah at the Esters, there is, do they accept? Is there a need for change, or actually is the fact that these events are sellouts a sign that that they feel they've got it right, which of course lays the opportunity for others like the women in property to do that something different. We've seen it, as we said before, the eye-opener that was Agent Rainmaker, that there's nothing like that in the industry, and it doesn't have to be massive. I think it was 200, 300 people there, but here was the interesting thing. They managed to marry that to keep the suppliers happy, because the level of engagement there, I've never seen anything like it in terms of people, making a surge to the stands and talking to other suppliers because their other Agent Rainmaker friends have recommended them. So I suppose
they do enthusiasm and engagement so well.
Yeah.
Everybody I spoke to that had attended the Agent Rainmaker thing, all the suppliers I'd spoken to said by far the best conference they'd ever attended, because they felt that people were actually listening and talking to them. And I think therein lies the answer.
Yeah. Megan's making the point here that she bought the sausage rolls. I think, thank you. That's important and needed saying as well. Are we done yet? We can expose that's Mark Bevan, so that's a bit rich, Mark, considering you weren't there. I thought you would have enjoyed me running through those rather than do it elsewhere. Who was that? Clap, clap, boom. Agent Rainmaker was crazy. I don't know. This is the problem. You need to register, guys. We need to understand who's on the other end there. Otherwise, we could be getting trolled. Actually, can we go back to troll there?
Yeah, sure.
That just when we do like to drag the Vegas bit from out there. Have you seen that? Famously, I think it's Megan's Law, the young girl who killed herself online. They are finally going to criminalise trolling, aren't they? That was still, I think, one of the most viewed webinars we've done when we had Russell Kirk on the other team about it. And that I think that is actually really, really needed, isn't it? Because some of those stories you hear are just horrific in the way that you can't believe. I think actually talking to again some of the ladies again, some of the stuff, and this is some of the stuff that the ladies that we know in this industry get sent out there is absolutely unbelievable. That some people are seeing LinkedIn as a dating site.
Honestly, you see, I see Chris Watkin as kind of almost like Michael Parkinson of our industry. He's an institution. And to hear him talking to Megan and to use the word dick pic on a Watkin sofa, probably not the first time.
But I didn't see this interview, and my mind's. And so Watkins showed her what?
So basically, he had Megan on, and he decided that he was going to go for. Obviously, they were talking about issues that women have to put up with.
Yeah.
And has been sent many unsolicited pictures of male appendages, as Chris Watkin described so very delicately.
Oh, that's like
and basically that, but on LinkedIn, we're talking about from big companies. We're talking about we're talking about people who should know better.
Yeah, we're not doing ourselves favors, are we? As a gender, maybe we need to be. But
you know what? It's a very common. There is a very common thread in all of this that it's not right. People just need to respect each other's boundaries a little bit more. It's that sort of stuff is insane.
I'm not respecting anyone's boundaries. That's not what I'm here for. I'm to break down boundaries, David. And look, we've had another one. It is shifting that vote slowly but surely. It's gone down 74-26. So that's, who knows? By the time this goes live tomorrow, we can say that actually burlesque was absolutely fine and we want more of it. But at the moment, firmly of the view that it was inappropriate. David, look, I mean, this is what we do. We have bounced from saving the planet to dick pics over the course of an hour with only 59 minutes dedicated to the awards.
Just remember, lads, they ain't pretty. Well, it depends if they're circumcised or not. Let's face it.
Megan, I'm going to show you mine. I think you're going to agree. It's actually quite lovely.
And that in itself is how you end the show on an extremely inappropriate note.
I'm going to draw a little gold face on it.
Amazing to see everybody though. Genuinely, it was lovely, and everybody was on good form, looking good. Very few people outrageously drunk that needed scraping off the floor and putting into a taxi. So well done, all of you guys.
She knows who she is.
And on that beautiful note, wishing you all an amazing week out there. Mr. Whale, have you got anything that you're going to smash this week?
Expenses.
He's going to smash.
If I've ever done them.
He's going to break the records again. Well done.
Good stuff.
We'll speak to you soon.